All right. We are here for another episode of season 3 of Dr. G at the Heart of Healthcare. It's a cozy, rainy day in Murrieta, and Gabriela Brown is going to tell us how to find the best home care agency. She's owner and operator of Constant Companions, and we need to know what's up with home care. Hello there.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, yes, I know we've been talking about doing a podcast for a while.
Yeah, we have definitely. I think it started fall of last year, and here we are in spring of this year. So I'm
Better late
glad we
than
finally
never.
did it. Yes,
Better
finally
late
did
than
it.
never.
Yes,
Yeah, and
that's
you're
right.
gonna you're gonna bless us with a podcast too. So, audience, we're gonna talk about home care. So, not everyone has, adult children to take care of them when their health fails. Or starts declining, I should say. And during the
Mhm.
late stages of life, sometimes you may need to have someone come in for a few hours, and that's not always covered. We have previously talked about home care with a different company during season 1, and also season 2 we did an episode, but today we're going to talk about how you find the one that's the best for you, and Gabriela has those tips. So before we jump into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Where are you from?
Well, I am actually from Texas, but I did come to San Diego in eighth grade, but I still have my father down in Galveston, and so I'm a little half and half. But I did go to high school and completed high school here in San Diego. And that is where I started my healthcare career unwittingly. After high school graduation, I became a CNA. Actually, it's an NA. They didn't have CNAs back in 1987. They train you at the facility, so it was trial by fire. And then then I
A
traveled
nursing
around a lot.
assistant.
I went to school.
Nursing assistant, by the way,
Yeah,
certified nursing assistant for those who don't know what that means. But anyway, go ahead. You
yes,
traveled around.
yes, nursing assistant. I'm so sorry. Yes. So I did. I went to school back east, and then kind of traveled oh, back. So basically from Virginia to Texas to Washington back to San Diego. So, but I still have very strong ties in Texas. And a lot of family there. So I consider myself half and half.
Yes, yes. We often
Yeah.
joke about Texas and how fancy she looks when she walks
Yeah.
into our little networking events looking like a movie star.
Yeah, well, it is a Texas thing. I don't go outside my house without eyelashes on or
Oh,
lipstick.
that's oh, well, that's so fun. Well, let me tell
Mhm,
everyone a little bit more about you. The CSA credentials is a certified senior advisor. Again, we've talked about
mhm,
senior advisors here previously. We had Oasis on, we had another company on. And so that is a really great skill for someone who is running a home care agency. So, Constant Companions, I learned, is a referral agency, and Gabrielle is going to tell us the difference between a referral agency and a home care organization in a bit. But she has a background in hospice palliative care and home health, and then she decided to start this company in 2003. And
mhm.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to hear about it. So let's just jump in. So the story is how you got this going, and then we're going to get into, how some tips that you can give our audience about how to find the best home care agency. So you told me that you became a CNA. So tell us just a little bit about the journey from being a CNA and being an expert in seniors and how that helps you today, as owner and operator of this.
Well, I have always gravitated towards older people. Even as a child, I loved being with them. And as a teenager, growing up too, we would go to Galveston in the summer, and my father would make us be candy stripers. We were, my sister and I were assigned to pediatrics. And then at one point, I worked in what is now called a transitional care unit. They didn't really have a name for it, but it was people that had been in the ICU and were still high level, but could be pulled out of the ICU. So I did spend some time with older people there and really found that I enjoyed being with them. I really enjoyed the history and just spending time with them. And so, as you said, when I did graduate from high school, I did go work at a nursing facility and was trained there. And I did get a little frustrated. It's really tough, the staffing, issues that they have. I really wanted to spend time with them, and there were days where you just couldn't. You just had too many people to take care of, and but I did value the time that I did spend there. And then when I did go to college, I had deferred that for a year. I alternated between waiting tables if it was a football weekend that made better money. So I alternated with that. Mhm.
Texas football.
Yes, well, this was Virginia, but it was
Oh, okay.
UVA. Yeah,
Okay.
so it was big. It was a big thing. So
Big
I
deal.
would wait tables on football nights, but any other weekend I was a caregiver. So I did mostly live-ins, and and I did have one client for the last 3 years of my college life, and so it was a very rewarding experience. And then when I graduated, I got into administration more on the marketing and community relations level for a home health agency. Actually, it was University of Texas Medical Branch, and at the time they had home health, hospice, home infusion therapy. It was what they call vertically integrated. So it really, we had DME, we had everything. So it was a great first job in the healthcare industry because I had to relate to the community, all of the services that we offer, and help the doctors and social workers navigate with there was a new system, payment system that Medicare was imposing at that time. So that was actually instrumental in keeping it floating, keeping it afloat.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've just always done that, and I love spending time with seniors, and I've always been an advocate for seniors. Um, and that's why I got my CSA, which is a certification that covers not just the healthcare part of working with seniors, but it also covers the financial, the social, the economic. It's very comprehensive. It's a 4-hour test, and I was so grateful to be able to take that and take the test and continue with that organization.
Awesome, awesome. So those are all great tools. So I'm sure
Mhm,
that, you have the hands-on experience, the
mhm,
credentialing, and then also you're a leader in the field to help people, get what they need. So let's
mhm.
just educate the people here,
Okay.
how do people end up needing home care? We know about those crises, right? Um,
Mhm.
People don't often plan ahead for this because they don't look for a home care agency until they absolutely need it or someone is forcing them, or I shouldn't say
Mhm.
forcing, like recommending,
Yeah,
like a
highly,
hospice
strongly
agency
recommending. Yeah,
or adult protective
yeah.
services, there's a concern for
Mhm.
safety or something like that. So why do you think people wait until they're, it's required to do it? Like
Mm,
it's their force, it's a necessity. I think that's the word you use. Why do people wait
mhm.
till the last minute to integrate these things?
Well, I think that all of us would like to think, including myself, that we will never need to use services. No, it, our old informal tagline was, "We're here. We know that you don't want to need us, but we're here if you do." It's kind of a thing where nobody really wants to get to a point in their life, and they don't envision it, where they do need assistance with activities of daily living. But most people, if they get to a certain age, will have mobility issues or memory issues, safety issues that would warrant at least, a few hours a day, helping them to maintain their independence. So I think a lot of times it's kind of, I think it's the same thing with hospice. I think it's the same thing with home care, um, funeral homes, final arrangements, that kind of thing. I think people just don't want to think about it, that it is an eventuality for a lot of people, and so that it does get put off until there is a crisis that warrants it.
Yeah, and you made a good point. You said the crisis is typically what?
It's typically a fall. When I do speak with potential clients and families, um, a majority of the time, I would say that the decline in the potential client was started with a fall. And the older we get, if somebody is in their 80s and they fall, that needs to be taken very seriously. The body doesn't heal like it used to. The risk of developing pneumonia from being laying down is increased. There's infection potential. There's so many things that can happen that are just started by a basic fall. And I have seen many of our clients reach out to us for the very first time with that. So I do a lot of education on fall risk management and things like that. But unfortunately, it sometimes it's just inevitable as we get older, which is why I do encourage people that if they are having issues with balance and so forth, that they start looking into having care and having help and getting that addressed. It is not something like my mother did it. She fell a few times and she just laughed about it. And I said, Mom, you shouldn't be laughing about that. You need to go figure out why you are falling and see if there's something that can be done because the consequences, she was in her 70s at that time. So the consequences when you cross over 80 can be devastating.
And you're absolutely right. We know that
Hmm.
falls are the number one cause of morbidity and mortality in seniors. And, often I've seen people, come to hospice because, again, there's a fall, they end up in a rehab, they start having skin breakdown from being in the bed. Just this
Hmm.
whole thing
Just
starts
like a cascade.
deteriorating. Yeah. And
Hmm.
so, listeners, if you're new to the podcast this season, during season 2, we covered physical therapy and occupational therapy topics. And then I also want to remind you about the activities of daily living. I try to simplify it to what it takes a person to go from the bed to the breakfast table. That's a summary. So, what do you have to do? You have to get up, transfer, ambulate,
Hmm.
go to the bathroom, actually do the toileting and the showering and getting dressed and then eating the food. So those things go
Hmm.
away. Those are things we do every day and we take for granted. But as we age and as we lose our functional capacity, we're not able to do those things, or cognitive capacity when there's
Hmm.
diseases like Parkinson's or there's a stroke or Alzheimer's disease or something of that nature. So I'm glad we're reminded of this stuff. So I want to say,
Yeah.
home care, let me educate them. The home care agencies are actually regulated in California.
Hmm.
We're going to just speak for ourselves from the California Department of Public Health. And so Gabriela taught me about the home care services branch, which is from the Department of
Department of
Health,
Social Services.
the Department of Social
Department of
Services.
Social Services. Hmm.
Okay, so I'll put a link to that in the
Yeah.
show notes because it was all learning for me. And tell me about some of those regulations for a home care agency. What do they have to do to be a part of that? Is it rigorous?
It's fairly rigorous. I wouldn't consider, we're considered, home care is considered non-medical, and that's why it is licensed under Department of Social Services, just like assisted living facilities are considered non-medical as well. And so medical that's covered by Department of Public Health would be your home health as opposed to home care. So home health, that's Medicare, hospice, skilled nursing facilities, or rehab facilities. So while we're still considered non-medical, there are things. It's kind of it's a support for the medical system. It's a very important step for the medical system because it's not considered health related. I think sometimes people think of it more as not a necessity, and it really is. So that was why I think it was 2014. I'm trying to remember because we went through the process. The state implemented finally the regulations for home care organizations. And that was a long time coming. There were a lot, anybody could start a home care company, and nowadays anybody can still. But they at least need to go through the process of the licensing, which includes just making sure that they're on the up and up. So with the state, because it's Department of Social Services, really the main requirements for a home care organization is that they have the liability, general and professional liability, that they have bonding, that the owner operator can pass a Department of Justice or FBI fingerprinting, so they can't have any kind of criminal past. And it is very stringent. You basically, anything more than a ticket, you have to appeal to them to get through that process. And then there are some that are just absolutely, you cannot have a license. So that, I mean, that comforted me when it came out that at least that was being done. Um, it does require that the owners of these home care organizations also provide ongoing continuing, basic continuing education, things like universal precautions, which involves, using gloves and how you handle uh, human pathogens and things like that. They have to be TB tested every 2 years. So there's some assurances health wise, use going through the Home Care Services Bureau and becoming a home care organization. And the people out there can be assured that whoever's coming into their home has been vetted. With that, I always tell people, and I have for 21 years, I always tell my clients that, yes, of course, we check them out. We make sure that they are cleared with Department of Justice and FBI, but that doesn't preclude anything from happening. It just means they haven't been caught yet. So, we always do counsel our families that yes, you're bringing in a person into your home. We do our absolute best. I'm sure every other health home care organization out there does their best to make sure that they're not sending someone horrible in there, but some do get through. So it's really important that whoever is doing the vetting of the caregivers also just, has some experience and knows what to look for. And over the years, there are red flags when I have applicants that I just don't move forward with them. So that's it's not foolproof, but at least that was a step in the right direction.
Okay, good. So just to review, and I think I got ahead of myself, so I
Hmm.
apologize. So
Okay.
someone's in a crisis, they find themselves needing non-medical home care because they need someone to help with their activities of daily living. So they
Hmm.
should look for a company that is licensed in the Home Care Services Bureau, and that will give them assurances that the home the caregivers are registered and they've been, kind of
Hmm.
vetted a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
and then I think I misspoke saying like the California Department of Public Health. No, it's not public health, it's social services. It's under that
Yeah.
branch because it's
You're right.
non-medical home care. And
Correct.
I just want to say even though it's non-medical, often when I do my home visits as a physician, um, the caregivers, they are frontline and they have all the essential information about that person. And they actually have a lot of influence on, telling the family, hey, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. It's eyes and ears.
Mhm.
For hospice care,
Mhm.
for instance, the nurses only go, once or three times a week or more if they need to. And obviously, I'm
Mhm.
available 24 hours a day, but the caregiver's there all the time. And so they are
Mhm.
important eyes and ears. And so I appreciate what they do. But I want to rewind because I
Mhm.
kind of skipped over kind of the costs and things like that. So it's really expensive, if you don't have um family that can take off, that can do
Mhm.
things. We talked about this during family caregiver month previously. But if you don't have someone that's going to commit to take care of you, then you have to hire them. And the going rate here in
Mhm.
Southern California is like $40 to $50 an hour.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot.
It is. It is a lot. And as an owner, I've been always been very sensitive about that. And we try to minimize, our overhead and try to keep our rates low. But just really since COVID, the increase in the cost of living, especially in the San Diego area, and I would assume the same for most metropolitan areas, has really skyrocketed. And just an example, before COVID, caregivers were okay with, 15, 16, $17 an hour. After COVID, you truly can't bring on somebody or keep them, at least retain a really good caregiver for probably less than 23
Mm-hmm,
dollars an hour. So just in a matter of a few years, it just really increased exponentially. And so that's a real big challenge for the home care companies, um, but also the clients and the caregivers. It's As an owner, I always see myself kind of as the air traffic controller between the caregiver and the client, and then me, the care plan. It's just kind of creating the plan and assuring that it's followed according to the needs and expectations of a client, making sure the caregiver can fulfill that. But also, there is being conscious of what the caregiver's needs are financially, as well as the potentially, I mean, all seniors have a limited fund. Even if they have a lot of funding saved up, it's still finite. And so we try to be very respectful of that fact. But since COVID, it's been really crazy. So that is the reason there that I think myself and a few other agencies did walk away from the home care organization model into a referral based agency, because it does cut out some of the costs so that we can offer adequate amounts of money paid to the caregivers, and then also, not tax the client so much, between 45 and 50. 40 and 50 is about where it is for the home care organizations.
Okay. So you said all that to say, again, I'm going to summarize for
Hmm.
people because that was a lot.
Sorry.
Everyone, they can't absorb
Sorry.
all that. They don't know all
Yeah.
that. So the reason I said that the cost is a cost, it
Yeah.
is what it is. And if you need home care, that's what it is. But you are
Right.
able to keep it lower because of the position you're in. And so that's a
Hmm.
great thing. And there are other assurances for that. So the reason I
Hmm.
brought it up though is because it's private pay. So that's something that's not covered.
Right.
You taught me about there's
Hmm.
veteran aid and attendance, and some people can use their long-term
Hmm.
care insurance for those costs, right?
Right. Yeah. So there are things that people can do to afford it. Once again, it's a situation where a lot of times people don't, it's something that nobody wants, and it is something that is not inexpensive. Even at 35 an hour, it's still expensive. So people do have to come up with this through their own funding. So that could be long-term care insurance, VA aid and attendance benefit. I believe that there are some programs through the VA. I'm not sure what the requirements are on that. I do know like the VA aid and attendance benefit is needs based, but it's fairly generous. It's more generous than, say, Medi-Cal. So they would just need to work with somebody that can process that paperwork and see what they do qualify for. Um, and the other things, there are other resources that people can tap into. With the price of houses in San Diego, they can do reverse mortgages, and they're very different than they used to be. And I know you said you're going to do a show on that. So reverse mortgages do have a very bad reputation. But that industry has been cleaned up over the last 20 years, and their products are definitely a way for people to be able to stay at home if they want to.
That's excellent. So thank you for bringing that up. We're going to have
Mhm,
a special veteran on during season 3. We're also going to talk about someone who deals with reverse mortgage. We're going to get to all those different funding things, and also someone to talk about
mhm,
long-term care insurance. So stay tuned for that. So also another tip you told me to, if they're looking for a home care organization, they should see if it's franchise or private. What is that about? And how would they know, like a
mhm.
consumer?
Well, I mean, well, you can ask if it's a franchise. I mean, all basically, if you're watching TV, you'll see like an ad for Visiting Angels or what have you. Those are franchises, and so really, what you have to consider is that yes, as an organization, they have a strong reputation. The purpose of the franchisor is to support the franchisees and market for them and have their standards. But each individual agency really takes on the personality of the owner. So I always encourage people really to look at each individual agency on its own and its own merits and the owner and how they operate. There are standard operating procedures, of course, for every franchise, um, and best practices. But the bottom line is who the owner is, how involved they are, that kind of thing. And that's what I encourage people to do, because you can't just say blanket that one of these franchises is great, because it's simply not true. It really is based on the leadership, and all of that, and their mission in general. So um, in my opinion, there are just as many good what you would call a boutique or individually owned companies as there are in the franchise world. Then
Fantastic.
they all need to be treated the same. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for giving us those tips. Audience, I'm going to put links to some of these things in the show notes. The valuable resource today is Constant Companions, and the website will be there. The Home Care Referral and Staffing Agency to find trusted caregivers near you. So I see on your website, they can just go right there and you will help them. I see you have a Facebook page, you're on X, you're on YouTube and Instagram. And so I'll make sure we tag you on there. So
Okay.
I'll let you have the final words for people. I really dedicate this season to helping people navigate the late stages of life. And the trigger is typically when they need care in their home,
Hmm.
regardless of their age, but it's dependent on their health. So any
Yeah.
last words you have for them as we wrap this up?
Well, we didn't really, and we didn't really touch on it, but I do want people to know that yes, there are home care organizations, and then there are what I am, which is a referral agency, and I want to make sure that people do understand that, even from a legal perspective, and it's on all of our literature that we're a referral agency, but the same as with home care organizations. There are more and more referral agencies because those are independent contractors, and it does cost our client less, and we're able to pay our caregivers more typically. But the same precautions should be taken with a referral agency, and you really should look into and demand the same standards in a referral agency that are required in the home care organization, because in the referral agency world, there is no regulation that way. It's mostly labor related, how you treat the person as a 1099. There really isn't the other standards in, and so they can operate however they choose to. And we've chosen to go ahead and operate our referral agency as if we were still a home care organization, requiring the vetting through Department of Justice and FBI, and making sure their TB is up to date, and making sure that they are continuing their education and things like that. So we operate that way, but not all referral agencies do. And I just want people to know that using a referral agency is a wonderful option to keep the cost down, but you do have to make sure that they are operating. And that's why I really touted the Home Care Organization and Home Care Services Bureau, because the referral agencies that follow those guidelines, those are the ones you want.
That's excellent. Well, I appreciate you, and I look forward to continuing to collaborate in the community and working together to find solutions for the seniors that we encounter. So, thank you for your expertise, and we're going to
Thank
sign
you for
out.
having me. Okay,
Oh,
all right.
of course.
Thank you.
Peace.
Okay, bye.